Hello and a very warm welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank Rausan Pereira. Over the next half an hour, we'll bring you a roundup of all the significant events that have happened around the world this week. But first, a look at the headlines. Italy's new government wins parliamentary backing. Prime Minister Conte says he will negotiate migration and economy with the EU, seeks to reassure with debt reduction pledge. Prime Minister Modi invites Chinese President Xi Jinping for a repeat of the Wuhan informal summit. Xi accepts Modi's invitation to visit India in 2019. Both sides sign MOUs on sharing hydrological data on Brahmaputra River and rice exports from India. At least 109 people killed after volcano Fuego erupts in Guatemala. Officials admit eruption warnings came too late. Survivors struggle with grief and wearily look to the future. Well, our top focus on the program this week, Italy's new government officially took the reins of the Eurozone's third largest economy on Wednesday after a decisive victory in the country's Chamber of Deputies gave parliamentary approval to a populist coalition that has alarmed EU officials. The alliance between the anti-establishment Five-Star Movement and the far-right League gained the Chamber's endorsement with 350 votes in favour, 236 against and 35 abstentions following Senate approval for Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte's government on Tuesday. Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte comfortably won a confidence vote in the lower house of parliament on Wednesday, confirming his government's majority after promising tough negotiations with Europe over the economy.
Members of Parliament present 621, voting members of Parliament 586, Member of Parliament abstained 35, Members of Parliament in favour 350. The lower house approves.
The Prime Minister, backed by the anti-establishment Five-Star Movement and the far-right League, won an initial vote in the Senate on Tuesday.
Senators present 314, voting senators 313, majority 145, senators in favour 171.
The Prime Minister, in his maiden speech to the lower house ahead of a vote of confidence, said previous management of migrant flows had proved unsuccessful and Italy wanted to promote a fairer distribution of responsibilities at a European level.
C'è l'esigenza di gestire flussi migratori.
There is a need to manage migratory flows, so for this, management at the European level, and I think you can all agree with this assessment, has proved unsuccessful. We therefore want to promote a fairer distribution of responsibilities at European level, and above all, there has been intervention that I have fully shared. It is not just an economic matter, even the German Chancellor Merkel said it. It is a question that concerns the concept of European citizenship.
Lo ha detto anche la cancelliera Merkel.
Conte can now forge ahead with his coalition program, which includes tax cuts, benefit hikes and justice reform.
We want to promote policies that encourage social and economic growth, but this will be done in compliance with the already explicit objective of a gradual decline in debt. We need to see how to get there. There is a great and very comprehensive debate between economists. We want to negotiate on this front also at the European level with our European partners.
Noi siamo per negoziare su questo fronte.
Meanwhile, Five-Star Movement's Member of Parliament Stefano Buffagni said that the new government has the majority needed to get Italy back on track, while Popular Alternative member and former Minister of Health Beatrice Lorenzin said that if the government's very costly program will be applied, Italy will be forced to leave Euro.
We are the government of change. There is a lot of expectation in the country because there is a lot of hope for the future. There is a desire to change and we have a full mandate with a large majority to get this country back on track. We are convinced that it is possible and therefore we must stay united.
The Prime Minister's speech was very disappointing in content and lacked any reference to where they will get the financial cover needed for the economic and social programs that, if applied, would condemn Italy to exit the euro.
A lawyer with little political experience, Conte was nominated by League leader Matteo Salvini and five-star head Luigi Di Maio, both of whom are now his deputy prime ministers. His government's program, which combines radical tax cuts with anti-austerity measures like a basic monthly income for the poorest citizens, has left many Italian and international observers perplexed given the country's huge public debt. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television. And joining me for a chat to talk about this is former ambassador to Italy, KP Fabian. Ambassador, welcome and thank you for joining me on the program.
Sure.
Are you surprised at all by the turn of events in Italy over the last few months?
Not really, because in Italy, the opposition to integration with Europe, opposition to globalization, opposition to the, lots of asylum seekers coming in, and their presence on the street and elsewhere, this has been growing. And unemployment situation is really bad. European level is about 7%. Italy's is more than 10%. But in parts of Italy, it could be as high as 23 to 30%, especially in the south. And there is a general disenchantment with the old parties. In fact, Italians are disappointed with the state. 95% of them in a survey said, we can't expect anything good from the state.
Right.
So there is disenchantment and people want to try something new.
What is the biggest challenge, do you think, for the new Prime Minister?
It's like this, they have made big promises. That is a basic income of 700 odd euro per month. If you are actively looking for a job, and then reducing the taxes, and then reversing the changes to the pension scheme. And now all this is going to cost money.
And where is this money going to come from?
That's the question. Of course, they are saying that they would have what is called a neo-Keynesian approach. That is, the government spends more, so demand is generated, then it will work out. But then you see, for the EU, for Brussels, Italy's budget deficit will shoot. Now it is about 2 point something. But if all this spending is done, it will come to, this spending will cost about 109 billion euro per annum. The budget deficit will shoot to 7% of the GDP, which is unacceptable because 3% is the limit.
Right.
And don't forget that Italy's situation in terms of sovereign debt is very bad, second only to that of Greece.
So what happens as far as the EU is concerned, because members of the EU seem to be a little skeptical about the new Prime Minister. Where does it leave the EU and why is the EU so skeptical?
Well, it's like this. If you recall, when the president vetoed the appointment of a particular person as finance minister because he had publicly said that Italy should get out of euro, and then they withdrew, and then the president asked an IMF expert, a technocrat to form a government, which failed, and then these two parties came together and they changed the name of the finance minister. Also, we should recall that during the election, they de-emphasized their Europhobia or Euroscepticism, because they know that if they say that we want to get out of euro, then they won't get elected. What they will do, and a survey has shown that 70% of Italians don't want to get out of euro. Yes. Though I should say that when I was there in 2000, when euro was coming in, the representative of the German central bank, Bundesbank, had told me, Ambassador, Italy does not qualify to be in the euro. Yeah. It may be a political decision, but I can tell you as a banker, economically it will be disastrous.
Sure, sure. So
what they will do is, they will try to negotiate with Brussels and say that, look, when we are spending money on productive purposes, don't treat it as part of the deficit.
Right.
In other words, they want some easing of the restrictions.
Fair enough. Where does it leave India-Italy ties?
India-Italy ties are good now. We had a strained period because of, 3 fishermen, unarmed, poor fishermen, which Italian Marines unnecessarily mistook them for pirates,
right,
and shot them dead in the afternoon. And Italy took a very unreasonable stand that, Italy will do whatever is necessary. India had no locus standi. It was illegal, it was unreasonable, and it was immoral.
Right.
But anyway, that is, thank God it is behind us. We don't have to go further into it. But I should say that, Italian foreign policy, I would say, is their world picture is in 3 concentric circles. The inner circle consists of Germany, France, UK, Austria, and 1 or 2 other European countries, plus United States.
Right.
The second circle, bigger circle, consists of the rest of Europe and some of the Latin American countries where there are lots of Italians, and also, Italy's sort of past colonial connections, like Libya and all that sort of thing. Then comes the wider world. Now, India comes somewhere between, partly in the second and a little bit outside the second.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It doesn't come in the first circle.
Sure. Okay. All right. We'll have to leave to that, Ambassador. Thank you so much for joining me on the program and sharing your perspective and putting things into perspective for us. Moving on now. Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping met on the sidelines of the SCO summit in Qingdao on Saturday. Both leaders held talks on the key aspects of bilateral engagement. 2 agreements were also signed between both the nations. One of the important outcomes of today's meeting was China conveying that it had accepted Prime Minister Modi's invitation to President Xi Jinping to have an informal summit in India in 2019.
On the first day of his 2-day visit to China for the SCO summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held direct talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Qingdao. Both leaders decided on deepening bilateral ties while reviewing the implementation of decisions taken at the informal summit in Wuhan at the end of April.
विश्व की स्थिरता और शांति का बहुत बड़े पैदा कर सकते हैं और मुझे खुशी है कि मैं वुहान में जितनी खुलकर के अपने बातें हुई एक सक्षम नेता की.
While External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Ravish Kumar called the meeting warm and forward-looking on Twitter, Chinese envoy to India Luo Zhahui said the 2 leaders focused on implementation of Wuhan consensus.
Chinese side conveyed that they accepted Prime Minister's invitation to President Xi Jinping to have a similar informal summit in India in 2019. And obviously the dates and so on and the other logistics get worked out at the diplomatic level and not at this level. Both also agreed, as they had decided in Wuhan, to keep strategic communications, to maintain them through various channels, including through telephone calls and through frequent meetings, including in the sidelines of multilateral events. And in that context, both of them agreed that their next meeting would be when they met at the BRICS summit in South Africa next month.
Two MOUs were signed after the meeting. One on China sharing hydrological information of Brahmaputra River with India, and another on amending the protocol on phytosanitary requirements for exporting rice from India to China to include non-basmati rice.
The one-on-one meeting between the leaders of both Asian giants in Qingdao comes less than 60 days after the informal summit held in Wuhan. The renewed momentum is a clear indication of the efforts made by both sides to reset and further strengthen the bilateral relationship. With camera person Sudhanshu Bhushan Shahu in Qingdao, this is Vishal Dahiya for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, over 14 million Facebook users who thought they were posting a message just to friends or smaller groups may have actually been sharing it widely with the general public due to a software bug, which the social media giant later admitted. Facebook said that the bug was active from May 18th to the 27th, which changed users' privacy settings to public without them knowing. The company said that it went back and recategorized the affected posts to the user's default setting before the bug, and the problem has been fixed. Reports claim that Facebook has agreements which allow phone and other device manufacturers to access its users' personal information, including that of their friends, without their explicit consent. The company is also still recovering from the Cambridge Analytica scandal, in which a Trump-affiliated data mining firm got access to the personal data of as many as 87 million Facebook users. Well, here's a quick wrap now of some of the other international news in our segment Globe Watch. US President Donald Trump is all set to meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on the 12th of June in Singapore. The announcement of the meeting comes after Trump hosted a senior North Korean delegation at the White House bearing a letter from Kim Jong-un. The historic meeting between Trump and Kim Jong-un would be the first between sitting US and North Korean leaders. Pakistan's former President Pervez Musharraf may contest in the upcoming election scheduled to be held on July 25th. This after the Supreme Court gave him a conditional permission. The Chief Justice of the Apex Court, hearing a petition against a lifetime ban on Musharraf by a High Court in 2013, said that he can file his nomination. Musharraf's APML party will contest election from the northern district of Chitral in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Musharraf was indicted in March 2014 on treason charges for imposing emergency in 2007. India, Australia, Japan and the United States on Thursday held the second meeting in Singapore to create balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. The four-nation coalition known as Quad held discussions over various ways to enhance connectivity and strengthen regional security in the Indo-Pacific region. The informal grouping of the four countries said in a press release that the move is aimed at ensuring free, open, prosperous and an inclusive Indo-Pacific region. NASA's Curiosity rover has discovered potential building blocks of life at the surface of Mars in findings released on Thursday, marking some of the strongest evidence ever that the Earth's neighbor may have harbored life. The new findings, published in the journal Science to describe tough organic molecules in 3 billion-year-old sedimentary rocks near the surface, as well as seasonal fluctuations of atmospheric methane in the atmosphere. NASA scientists, however, emphasized there could be non-biological explanations for both discoveries, leaving the issue of Martian life unanswered. Well, moving on to other news now. Officials in Guatemala have admitted that they were slow to warn the public of the danger posed by the eruption of the country's volcano of fire. At least 109 people were killed when Volcan de Fuego erupted last Sunday, sending gas and rocks hurtling down the mountain at high speed, enveloping several villages. Experts warned there was a possibility of pyroclastic flows 8 hours before the main eruption, one of the deadliest in 500 years, but the National Disaster Agency failed to impose mandatory evacuation orders. Here's a detailed report.
death toll in the Guatemala volcano eruption climbed to 109 on Friday. Due to unfavorable weather conditions and the large amount of high-temperature sediments in the eruption area near Fuego volcano, the rescue efforts were also temporarily suspended.
This is an immense tragedy because it's not only about the number of the victims, but it's about the long-term period of recovery for those affected. More than 1 million are affected by the eruption, and many of them lost everything, lost their livelihood especially. So our commitment is to support those people for the next future to recover their activities, their normal life. These are the typical consequences.
In total, 1.71 million people have been affected by the eruption, with 109 confirmed as deceased, 197 still missing, and over 12,000 people evacuated.
I never thought the volcanic eruption would cause so much damage. This shelter has taken in a total of 1,079 people affected by the disaster. We are staying by their side day and night. People spend the night on the floor at first, and then sheets were distributed to them. Then we received mattresses, and some even had folding beds. People's life here have been gradually improved.
Although the shelter in Esquintla was located 30 kilometers away from Fuego volcano, the area was still hard hit by the eruption. Those who escaped the disaster without any physical wounds still carried some emotional ones due to the loss of their friends and family.
They found one of my nieces. I thought she was missing. It turned out that she was trapped by the collapsed walls. However, I lost my mom and all my relatives on her side. It is extremely painful for us, but I must be strong and live on with courage.
Many NGOs and individuals have offered help to the people in the shelter by delivering donations and supplies.
Hope and unity still exist in the face of this predicament. People have faith in this. We help the victims as if we were helping our old friends. People are like family to each other.
Stories of courage emerged where locals did their best to save those in danger. A brave Guatemalan dad and son drove several times towards the ash cloud after the Fuego volcano eruption to help people get down to safer zones on the 3rd of June. Adrian Larios told Reuters he and his dad drove up 13 times until they got people that couldn't move fast enough to escape the lava. A video filmed by himself showed his dad driving and urging people to get inside the car as other people ran downhill on the street. Dramatic video footage showed firefighters desperately trying to escape from a huge cloud of ash behind them after the volcano erupted. Apart from those trapped in distress, firefighters also rescued several dogs and farm animals from the disaster zone. Meanwhile, victims of the disaster mourned the loss of family members outside the city morgue in Esquintla. Coffins were stacked around the morgue as families waited for the remains of victims killed in the disaster to be identified.
I lost my grandchildren and my daughter. Maybe you see me smiling, but instead I'm in a lot of pain because I'm not going walk around all bitter. Some people around here see me and say this guy doesn't feel anything. He's just smiling, but no, only I know how I am inside. And I'm in a lot of pain for having lost my family.
The volcano exploded around noon on the 3rd of June and lava began flowing down in the afternoon. The eruption of Fuego, Spanish for fire, was the biggest in more than 4 decades. The violent eruption showered volcanic ash over nearby towns and spewed pyroclastic flows throughout the area. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, let's now shift focus and bring you up to speed with some sports news you might have missed this week in sports action. The Indian women's team defeated Pakistan to secure a place in the finals of the Women's Asia Cup T20. Chasing a target of 73, the Indian Eves secured a 7-wicket win with 23 balls to spare. India's skipper Harmanpreet Kaur played an unbeaten knock of 34 runs to lead the team to victory, while spinner Ekta Bisht took 3 wickets in her spell. Cricket Australia Chief Executive James Sutherland announced to step down from his position. Sutherland said that it is the right time for him to depart. However, he denied that the ball tampering scandal had played a part in the decision. Sutherland will stay on for up to 12 months until his replacement is found. His announcement comes soon after the resignation of coach Darren Lehman and CA Integrity Chief Ian Roy, who oversaw the board's investigation into the ball tampering affair. Russian President Vladimir Putin welcomed fans and teams to the FIFA World Cup in a video statement released on Friday. Putin said that it was a joy and honor to host the landmark international event and hoped that fans will get to know Russia and learn about its identity, culture and history. Russia will host the World Cup tournament between June 14th and July 15th across 11 cities. Spain's new Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez presented midfielder Andres Iniesta with Spain's highest sporting award, the Cross of Merit in Sports. Iniesta thanked his teammates in the national team and his club Barcelona for contributing to his achievement. Spain will kick off their Group B campaign against Portugal in the World Cup in Sochi on June 15. Morocco and Iran are the other teams in the pool. Well, 4 volleyball stars experienced a new career high by playing a game 215 feet in the air on top of a Ferris wheel. The contest took part between last year's World Championship silver medalists Clemens Doppler and Alex Horst in their home country of Austria and Norwegian duo Anders Mol and Christian Sorum ahead of the Vienna Major in August. I'm going to leave you with these visuals from Austria. Until next time, this is Frank Pereira signing off.